Thank you, Adam, for sharing your work with us today. It's a pleasure to have you on MoCA New York interview session.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Hello from Connecticut.
You have consistently, Adam, been using technology to give your work an innovative stance. I'm thinking about your early body of work that used 3D printing outfitted with a brush. It was dipped in a slip and it mechanically drew and did calligraphy on the clay. I thought the work was so imaginative and really unique. The result to me was quite stunning, and its conception, its execution was, just marvelous. So for this first question, I'd like to ask you if you would, what led you to use this substituting of extruded clay for a brush, first of all, in 3D printing? And then, secondly, ironically, satirically, you took away the artist's hand that has traditionally been used for calligraphy and put it in the hand of a mechanical machine. So it was quite a subversion. So would you sort of tell us what was your thinking?
Sure. My thinking was actually kind of the opposite, which is that I went to school for industrial design and everything was about robotics and technology, digital tech and manufacturing, 3D printing. So I saw the real removal of the human hand and I wanted to put it back into industry. So I found a way to kind of hack the system by, you know, um, making the hardware handmade. I really felt like putting the hand back into these machines by creating handmade tools. So I made handmade brushes that would go over porcelain. And I actually have a video that I can share of how it works. So let me cue that up right here. So I use a handmade brush on a CNC machine. It's going the exact same way every single time. So I use multiples. So if I want to create an image, the machine is doing exactly what I want it to. However, because it has a different brush, I get a different result. So I have two examples here. This is a picture of a lying figure taking a selfie. And you can see they're very gestural marks, and that's made with one of the brushes. And then I have a second one that's similar, however, different at the same time. So the brush strokes, I get a different result every single time that I press print, essentially. And I thought that was really interesting that I could use digital technology to make multiples, but have them be unique. So that's where I started from. I was really interested in how designers can work with the human hand, work with traditional studio techniques in order to have this hybrid of design and craft.
So because of your training, you really have used technology, but wanting to soften it in a way that brings the artists into the work. So you have mentioned, in fact, my second question to you is that you really have mentioned that you've been critiquing 21st century rituals as well as digital culture. So that kind of critiquing is really a specific question now that I want to ask you. What are you specifically trying to undermine or reveal about 21st century rituals? And what rituals, for example, are you trying to undermine?
Yeah, I'm the first to tell people when I meet them that I'm a millennial. There's no shame in that. However, it comes with this idea that technology was introduced to me, or social media and smartphones were introduced to me right when I was entering college. So it was a whole new world.
Of
And by
course.
rituals, I mean things like text messaging, taking selfies, things like that, where when it first came up, there was a lot of criticism over being on your phone too much and perhaps being avoidant of the real world. However, I just kind of wanted to point out that things like a text message can actually be really important to people and that it's almost like a 21st century love letter. It's a way that we can communicate across borders. My husband, we met overseas and we lived long distance, and our relationship would not have been sustained without technology, without messaging through digital technology. I think it just expands our world. However, I think we should really understand how we're developing with a fine-tooth comb and see and just be really conscious and present of how it is changing our culture.
I like that you, as a millennial identification, are really defending the social media and the media world in a way that has really only gotten criticism. So I really appreciate this fresh new look at looking at our rituals, so to speak, as you say they are. I'd not looked at it that way, maybe because I'm not a millennial, but you have given me a fresh idea about it. And I would like to think that my text messages are love letters from somebody anyway. I've really been amused by another body of work that you've had, that you've been doing, called this emoji ware. And I think these are incredible because emojis have been so ubiquitous in our society for ironically removing the need for words altogether. So tell us about your emojis and what are the stories that they're telling?
Yeah, so I love emojis and how they've developed into or integrated into our own language. The history of using imagery and symbols as text has a long history, from pictograms that turned into Chinese or hieroglyphics. I just think this is a new evolution of how we're using symbols and pictures and iconography in order to get messages across. And this first actually started because I was gifted a family heirloom. It is a fourth generation. It's been in my family for 4 generations, and it is a stoneware platter with images of birds, and there's a mountain and some flowers. And it's a very lovely dish. However, it's not, let's say, my style. It's not, I feel like I'm a very pop-oriented person, very high contrast. And as lovely as this is, it didn't really resonate with me at first. So I thought, as an artist, how can I use this or translate this into a millennial generation or a millennial kind of language? So I turned every single symbol into an emoji. So where you see ducks, flowers, I converted into emoji, and these are silk screens. So you can hold them up side by side, and you can see the comparison. And what I love about this is that by translating the position of everything as well, there's no horizon line on this, so they're almost floating. And I feel like digital culture is this kind of floating ethereal thing that's kind of ungrounded. So from here, I looked at other historic pieces and turned those into emojis as well. I don't have a picture of it, but the Met has a very lovely Ming Dynasty vase that I then converted all of the landscape animals and symbols into emoji in blue and white. So there were lotus flowers, there was wheat, there were ducks all along. So I'm converting these historic pieces into a language that I feel like me and my peers can relate to.
So you're sort of using these symbols on vessels in the manner even that the 18th century vessels were done, where they did a thing, what they called a medallion, and they would paint a story within the medallion on the vessel to tell a story. However, they were very highly decorated. Your pieces are really pared down,
Yep.
aren't they? They're sort of the essence of just the emoji, what you're calling the emoji, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a really good, astute point that my work does kind of, it's distilled. It's extremely distilled. And I feel like that might be another aesthetic of millennial culture of just, paring it down. In terms of medallions, I do have another piece that I made with emoji. These are, this is a vase with the 12 zodiac animals of the Asian zodiac, all in emoji. And the medallion is kind of the white space, the circle framed with all these dots. And I've chosen to kind of use medallions as well as other techniques to frame. So as minimal as my pieces are, I really like the framing of a medallion or the framing of content. So what I mean by that is even the previous piece right here is framed within these two blue lines, and other work that I've had is always has a strong silhouette and kind of an illusion of a border or a soft border or even a hard border. It's all about how it's framed, because in digital technology, we see things through screens. I'm looking at a screen right now, and it has a border, it has a frame, it's a window, it's a portal, it's a border, and I really want to kind of be subversive about that. Not to call it out completely, but to use it to draw a parallel.
Does it matter to you if the viewer understands the relationships of the emojis or your symbols? Or are you having, so for example, does a work get accompanied with a story? Or do you want the viewer to just accept these symbols as in and of themselves as a design or pattern?
Both. I want my work to be universal and specific at the same time, where, say, a ceramic historian can look at a piece and understand where it has come from. But I also want someone just off the street to come in and enjoy the piece and kind of create their own story. I don't want to put judgment on that. I want everyone to be able to get something out of it. So I design my pieces to have a historic backing, have a reason for it, however, be accessible as well.
Is that why you choose to use cobalt blue and white? What's the reference there?
Yeah, there are many reasons why I use blue and white. One of them is that it does have this kind of approachable, accessible aesthetic to it. People understand it. It might be in their grandmother's, china cabinet. They might have seen it around. It lives in the domestic space. I also use it for a political reason. Cobalt blue, or cobalt, makes blue in pottery, but cobalt is also used in lithium-ion batteries that power our smartphones, our tablets, even our rechargeable cars now. Electric cars have cobalt in them. So again, it's really working with these parallels. So that's another reason why I use cobalt and blue.
I love it. So it's a lot of different ideas coming into this one work that's heavily loaded, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
What attracted me recently has been your new series using AI and artificial intelligence. And I think this series has been really swept me off my feet because we don't know what's real and what's not real these days. And again, you seem to be questioning in a satiric intent using AI for your work. So this series, I think you call it Generated Love. And you've been looking at artificial intelligence. And so tell me, what is the series about, and how are you using AI to generate your images?
Yeah, I really wanted to delve into AI because of how it works. It scans a very, very large data set of images and then seamlessly composes images together, kind of like a collage, based on how you prompt it. And I was really interested in how we have this like large, like human library, or this huge library that this software can pull from. So it's pulling from this whole dictionary of images to create a custom image that is essentially fake. So it comes from everywhere and it comes from nowhere at the same time.
So
And I,
show us some work that
yeah,
illustrates this. Uh-huh.
so here's a plate right here, and I have to prompt, I have to work with the software to create a prompt in order to generate an image. So I work in blue and white to keep consistency with what I've been doing. And I also ask it to reimagine um, like Ming Dynasty porcelain to include gay men in like embracing or kissing or just being in love. So here's another one.
So,
And
so you know that these images have never existed.
they haven't.
You have asked AI to create this scenario that you then can reposition onto a plate.
Yeah, and I was also really interested in to bring it into the real world because so far what I've seen is AI, like a chat AI or even image-based AI, still stays on the screen. So I'm really interested in bringing it into the real world and then perhaps taking pictures and putting it back. So this idea of taking it from the screen, most of my work is that working on the screen, but then pulling it into physical reality, I think is so interesting. And just because it's real, there's a realness to it now. It lives in the physical world, but it is a fake image. It doesn't come from, it has no context. It's an imagined history.
Yes, it's a fake image that now will live with us as being real. So that's the dichotomy. And that's sort of a joke on us as well. But anyone not knowing that it was artificially induced will take it at face value. Does that bother you at all?
No, it doesn't. Because of the type of imagery of gay men in love, I think I'm not so concerned about that because I want people to accept queer culture in the mainstream and really when they see the piece and not know if that it's a false image, that it doesn't have history to it, to kind of imagine what history could be and what it can be. So what would happen if LGBTQ rights were accepted throughout history? What would our objects look like? What would our images look like? What would acceptance look like? So I don't mind that because it kind of it lets someone imagine it or question, oh, was this real? Could this be real?
Well, on that note, I also want to add that you are not even making the plates. You are buying store-bought plates, and that piggybacks on the legacy of an artist by the name of Howard Kotler, who in the 70s used store-bought plates to put his decal images on and to, within satiric intent, for example, on the American flag, would juxtapose the flag into various positions to give satirical intent on the flag. And you seem to be doing the same thing. So, in fact, tell us the correlation and your influence maybe from Howard. Is there one?
Absolutely. This is 100% an homage to Howard. I feel like I am picking up the ball where he left off and continuing the conversation. My knowledge of Howard is that he really tried to clear code a lot of his plates that he used by using commercial decals and reconfiguring them. So just like AI, he was gathering all of these ready-made decals and images and creating his own imagery with it to create messages that were political, that were, again, queer-coded. And I really feel like this is kind of the next step, this a different type of look, a 21st century look at how the conversation has evolved.
Well, he also signed the back of his plates with his name in platinum. And hold up the back of that plate again. You're sort of mimicking that? Adam Chau on black. And is that a decal that you?
Yep. So this is actually a really special decal here. It is a picture of a Howard Cotler rose that I've altered to blue. So this whole series really is an homage, because I do want people to know about Howard and his legacy, and also really just have a conversation between the two pieces, or the two bodies of work.
Wonderful. I hope you register that back stamp with the Marx Project.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
fabulous back stamp, because the story behind it and the homage to Howard's with the rose, because he did many plates using that rose decal. Well, thank you, Adam. I really appreciate, our viewers really appreciate you sharing your wonderful style and imagination, but most of all, your use of technology that informs and alters our way of thinking about ceramics and about imagery today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Judy.